I can't tell you how many different people are like, oh, I love Amy. I love Amy Miller. It's like
Aw.
everybody loves or everybody knows Amy and hopefully loves you. But like,
That's
but
nice.
how did that happen for you? Like being 10 years in, I can't imagine, like, it almost feels like you've been doing it 20 or something with the reach that you've had.
Yeah, I don't know. That's funny because it's something Johnny would bring up on the road too, because as that's sort of a third role that I'm always playing, like night of the show. It's like I'm dealing with the club and stuff and I have to perform, but then in almost every city I have like old friends that are coming out, people that I used to work with or like distant cousins or whatever. And Johnny's like, "You don't have to talk to all these people. Do you know that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I disagree. I'm not giving everyone a ton of time, but if it's like, like in Seattle, one of my best friends in the world lives there and we've been friends since we were 17. So like, yeah, I got to spend some time with her. Like, you know what I mean? Because we don't have time on this tour to go get breakfast or whatever. So like, this is when I'm going to talk to her. And Johnny would always be like, "You're giving away so much of your energy before you even get on stage. Like, you must be exhausted." And I am. That's true. Like, after every run, I need like a week to be by myself at home talking to no one, just to like recharge.
Yeah.
um but I don't know. I mean, I've had a lot of jobs. I've lived in a handful of cities, and I guess I don't know. I've just always met a lot of people. I probably am too generous a lot of the time with my social energy. That's changed like in the last 5 years or so, like who I give it to. I guess I have more boundaries now about that, or especially if I like don't vibe with someone. But I don't know. I just know a fuck ton of people and I'm not exactly sure why. I
Yeah.
just have
It
lived in a lot of
surprised me.
different worlds.
Yeah. And I mean, you started in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
Comedy.
Hmm.
And you were teaching during the day and then doing comedy at night, or was
At
that
that time, when I started, I was working for this company called Ticketfly, which is a big ticketing company that is now defunct, or they got bought out by Eventbrite and then Pandora, whatever. Can't remember the order of things, but um now that brand is gone. But yeah, I was so I was working basically in a startup environment in San Francisco, and yeah, that's where I did my first set. But it was like uh, first how when did I move to LA? I guess for like 6 or 7 years of stand up, I always had a full-time, pretty demanding job,
really?
and did comedy at night. So everything after that has felt like a fucking vacation. I mean, I've been poor, so that sucks, but like it's also really fun. When I made the decision to just only do comedy, it was really scary, but it makes you hustle a lot more. And we've talked about this because you've, asked me about like when, if or when you should leave your job. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's different for everyone. For me, I knew that if I left uh my day job, I would work a lot harder at comedy, because once it's your income, it's like, oh shit, I gotta really get these dates on the books and audition for stuff and try to get my name out there. So
But to do everything you're doing within like 10 years, I mean, that shows quite a bit. Like what was it like for you starting in San Francisco? Were you like doing shows really quickly, or was there like,
I kind of was. That's probably why I kept doing it. Like the momentum sort of took itself over, because I just like went to this open mic like a little bit as a joke. Not like, oh, people who do open mics are losers, but like as a dare, I guess that's a better word.
well, you were
That my
30 too. So it's like, that's a different look to be doing that than when you're like drunk at 19 or 20, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of young people, especially in open mic.
Yeah, there were a ton of super young people, and I like forget sometimes like the people that I started with, like about our age difference. But some like my friend Claire O'Kane, who's a very funny comedian. She lives in New York. She was like 19 when we started. So like a literal kid, and now we're
Crazy.
peers basically. But yeah, it was a there's no other reason in my life I would have been hanging out with like 19 and 21-year-olds. But having said that, the year that I started in 2010 was like, deep in the middle of the recession. And a lot of people in the Bay Area, at least, were even 40 and up starting comedy for their first time because they were just like, I lost my job. I'm fucking gonna lose my house. Like, I have to do something so I don't kill myself. Like, there were all these like older, like dads and stuff who were starting comedy. So I was by no means anywhere close to the oldest. Although a lot of people I hung out with were much younger than me. But yeah, it was just kind of a dare. I didn't think I would go back, but then I think like I got some laughs and I met some really cool people, and the social part probably brought me back. And then after the second time, my second open mic set, someone offered me a show.
Shit.
Part of the reason too is in SF, like these like I don't know, dudes who ran shows and especially like bringer shows would kind of sniff you out and be like, oh, she works in a startup. That means she has a whole office of people she can invite to her shows. So maybe she's not that funny yet, but we know she could probably get 20, 25 people out. And I did regularly. And then,
Of course you did. I mean, it's just because you're excited and like, you don't know how valuable that is. Like,
yeah. But then it just became this thing where after, 3 or 4 years, I'm like, I don't want to be your bringer comic because I'm like getting kind of good and I just want to be invited on your show. You know what I mean? And then I started like a couple of my own shows in the Bay Area. And, it's like just the momentum. It's like once you have a couple friends in comedy and then you have a show name and you say that it's going to be weekly, like you can't just quit.
yeah.
Although about a year and a half in, I did take pretty significant amount of time off. So just because I was tired dealing with the scene and specifically the men in my scene. And I was like, I don't think I'm cut out for this, like spiritually. But thankfully I went back eventually. But I went back because someone like messaged me to book me for a show. And I was like, I guess, yeah, I'll do it. I mean, I haven't done comedy in like 10 months, but yeah, let's go.
So when you were like starting out though, were you out every night or what was your, because you had that day job and shit, were you pacing yourself or were you just kind of relentless?
No, I didn't pace myself at all. And I was really tired at work. um, I not every single night, but probably at least 4 or 5 nights a week, I would either do a mic, go watch a show, or go like hang out at the Punchline, or yeah, go to my own show. It was a lot. I mean, for sure. But I mean, that's what I wanted. And that's why I eventually moved to Portland because even though I had a full-time day job there, I was like, there's so much stage time in Portland. Like, I just want to get away from my original scene. I'm not going to move to LA immediately, like so many people do, and then quickly realize it was a mistake.
Mhm.
Because you can't just show up 2 years in and nobody knows who the fuck you are and you're not that good yet and be like, where are my shows? There's just too many comics here. But yeah, kind of same thing in Portland. I was just working this day job and thankfully it was like in the entertainment business. Like I worked for venues and stuff. So a lot of people were coming to work at 11 a.m. I wasn't the only one. Like it was fine. But yeah, it was I mean, I'm still pretty relentless. I don't know. I thought it would slow down by this point, but I always tell myself when I'm home from the road, like I'll take a full week off. And then inevitably I'm like, oh, I have 7 shows this week. What have I done? So
And
I
I've
just say
heard,
yes. I say yes to everything. And then, and I'm fortunate enough to work the clubs here. And so like my week just fills up. I've like never slowed down for some reason.